Welcome to the lecture, guys. In this lecture, we will be discussing about JEE Main 6th September 2020 second shift attempt. So, all the question being discussed here are memory-based question as per the student itself. My name is Anmol Kumar. I am MTech in Aerospace Engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and your instructor at iitpathshala.com at IIT Pathshala, Delhi. So, before going into the lecture, please like, share, and subscribe my channel and hit the bell notification icon. So, now let us discuss the question paper. So first question is saying that you have to find the center of mass of a solid hemisphere. He have mentioned over here that it is a solid hemisphere which is having a radius of 8 centimeter. So you should be knowing that we can apply a direct formula over here of the center of mass of a solid sphere to be equal to 3r by 8. You can check out the following derivation if you don't know how I get this formula over here. Now just put the value of radius over here and you can find out the value of the center of mass from the center O itself. Okay, so it will be lying somewhere here. It will be lying somewhere here on this y-axis over here, and the distance from this O will be equal to 3r by 8. Now let us move to the next question, which says you are having two charges q1 and q2, both are positive charges lying on the x-axis. Let us say the distance between them is d. Now, which of the following graph is representing the potential as a function of distance r from the charge q1? Now, what you can do over here is you can just formally write the value of potential at a certain point. Okay, so let us say that from the charge 1 itself, I am having a distance r, and from the charge b itself, I am having a distance x of that certain point. So for example, you are having the certain point here, so you are having the distance r in between this point p and q1 and x in between this point p and q2. You can write the following expression of potential as you know. Now to form the graph, what you can do is you can move this point along the following points which I have done over here. So I am having this point situated very far at infinity, let us say at a point D. Okay, so at a very far point infinity, the value of r will be infinity and value of x will be infinity. So I can say that this expression will tends to 0 but will not be equal to 0. Okay, or the value over here will be very much near about the 0. Now let me give you an idea of how you will be plotting a graph in between v versus the distance over here. So you are having same situation of y over 1 by x. So you can plot the following graph as follow in the following manner. Okay, in mathematics you have studied about that. Now what you can do is you can take a point very near to this q1 over here. Okay, so if you are very near to this q1, potentially your r will be equivalent to 0 or will be near about to 0, and your x will be having a certain value. Let us say it is equivalent to d plus some delta x over here. Okay, d plus some delta x over here. Now from this expression I can say that kq by r will tends to infinity because r is tending to 0, and this expression over here kq2 by x will tend to a finite value. So infinity plus finite value will gives you a infinity. So you'll be having a shoot at this point, you will be having a shootout at this point p. Okay, a infinite value of v over here, and by this mathematical formulation I can say that the graph in between d and p will follow the following manner. It will follow this manner only. Okay, now using this graph over here and using this expression of v over here, in between q1 and q2 I have taken 3 points. Point which is very near to q1, namely a, point which is near to q2 which is c, and a point in between both of them. Okay, so if you find the potential at point a, it will be again equal to infinity. At point C it will again equal to infinity because x will be 0 at this point. Okay, so here I am having a shoot or up to infinity. I am having a graph shoot out to be infinity. Okay, my graph tending to infinity at point A and point C. At point B I know that it will be having a certain value. Okay, it will be having a certain value. So what I can say this, what I can do is, because to meet point A and point B by utilizing the following mathematical expression over here, I can say that the curve will be of this shape only. Okay, so curve will be of this shape over here. Similarly, for B to C, from B to C, the curve will be of this shape only. Okay, the moon like crescent shape. Okay, now let us look forward to the point E and the point F. In the same manner as I have plotted for the point D and the point P, I can say that the curve will be something like this. Just put the value and find your answer. So this curve is resembling my option 2 over here. So I can say that my option 2 is a correct option. So it's a direct question from the worksheet itself. Okay, both of the question which we have done far so ever here are direct question from your worksheet from your respective institutes. Okay, now let us move to the next question. This is a question being repeated from the previous examination, the second or the third shift itself. So magnetic field is having a electromagnetic wave whose magnetic component is as follow. Now we have seen that in the previous question, in the previous exam question, electric component was given and we had to find the magnetic component, but now in this case we are being given with the magnetic component and we have to find for the electric component. Now it's a pretty much very simple job. First of all, if you see the following equation, you can figure out that your wave is traveling into the positive x direction. Your wave is traveling into the positive x direction. Okay, so my wave is positive x direction, my wave is traveling in positive x direction, my B is lying in k cap direction. Okay, so as I know from the information itself, that the direction of propagation of wave is nothing but the cross product of the electric field vector and the magnetic field vector. I can figure out the direction of the electric field vector. Okay, so if I am having a resultant of I cap vector, I am being given with a k cap vector over here. So my another vector should be of j cap vector, because j cap cross k cap will give me a positive I cap. Okay, so I can say that from the potential options over here, minus j cap is not a good option for me. I'm left with these two options. Now we have to find the magnitude of the electric field vector also. Now from the following formula, E naught by B naught equal to C, I can figure out the electric field vector magnitude. Okay, which is coming out to be 3.6. So second option is again the correct option for me. Now let us move to the next question. So as per the trend, every paper is having a kinematics question. Okay, and maximum time question comes from the relative velocity concept itself. So here umbrella problem is there. Okay, if you can see over here, it's nothing but the umbrella type problem. Rain is falling vertically when a car is at rest. Okay, so in the worksheet itself you have seen that a person was holding an umbrella, but here this is a car given to you. So rain is falling vertically when a car is at rest. When the car is moving with a speed v, rain is appearing to be at an angle 60 degree to you with horizontal. Now if you are moving with this speed, now you are moving your car with this speed, you are observing rain to be at an angle of 45 degree. So you have to find the value of b, beta. So what you can do is, first case, when you are at steady state, means you are at rest, you can say that my rain is falling with respect to ground as follow: vertical, I am not moving with any velocity. Now let me give you some velocity over here. So first case is your velocity of rain with respect to ground is coming down to the vertical, you are at rest with velocity v equal to 0. Now you start moving. When you start moving, you are observing your rain to be at an angle of 60 degree over here. Your rain to be at an angle of 60 degree over here. Now what I have done over here is, I have just reversed the direction of my velocity of the car, so to make the velocity vector of, or velocity triangle of my problem over here. So this is the falling velocity of the rain, this is the velocity I will be encountering of the rain, and this direction I was moving, in this direction I was moving. So what I have done is I have reversed this direction as follow. Okay, stating that my vector is now negative vector over here. Okay, that's why I have taken a negative over here for the car itself. Okay, so this vector plus this vector will give you a this vector. VRG plus minus V of car will give you a vector of V rain with respect to the car itself. Okay, V rain with respect to the car itself. Now you are having a rain velocity with respect to the motion of the car. Okay, same as this. Okay, in this velocity triangle I have used the same logic over here. Now how you can find the value of V over here is, how you can find the value of beta over here is, you can do is you can take the angle tan theta. So tan 60 degree will be equivalent to the ratio of these two velocity VRG upon the velocity of car over here, which is nothing but V, and tan 45 degree will be equivalent to VRG upon beta plus 1 V over here. Okay, nothing fancy about that. Now what you have to do is you have to take the ratio of both of them, take ratio of both of them, put the equivalent value of tan at 60 degree and tan at 45 degree, and VRG will be cancelled out with each other and you will be left with the following expression. Okay, you will be left with the following expression. And now you can figure out the value of beta mathematically, which is a pretty much simple job to do. Now let us move to the next question, which says you are having a equiconvex lens, means the convex lens should be having same radii of curvature. Okay, which is having a power p. You have to find out the value for the power of the plano-convex. So this is a plano-convex in which your one side is plane. Okay, your one side is being plane. Okay, and another side is like a normal convex lens. When the lens is cut in such a way that two plano-convex are formed, so you are making two plano-convex after cutting this lens over here. So you are getting two convex plano-convex lenses over here. Now what you can do over here is you have to find the power. So what you can do is first apply the following formula. It's a theory based question over here, so you can apply the following formula. Okay, now as you know, R1 is equal to R2, and using the sign convention I can figure out the value of 1 by f. 1 by f is nothing but the power itself. Okay, 1 by f is nothing but the power itself. Mu minus 1 by r is nothing but my constant. Okay, so I'm getting the power of lens equivalent to 2 into the constant over here. Now the sign convention which I have used over here is, I have used that the upcoming rays will decide the direction of the positive quantities over here. So upcoming rays are coming from here and going to this point over here, so I can say that they are coming from here and going beyond my lens over here. So I can say that the direction here is negative, direction here is positive. So henceforth I can say that the R1 will be falling in the positive direction itself and R2 will be falling in the negative direction itself. Okay, so that's how I'm getting 2 by R over here. Now for the plano-convex lens you can say that R2 is infinity and R1 is being a positive number over here. Okay, as per the sign convention you can figure out the value of 1 by f and you can figure out the value of power also. Now divide both of them, you will be landing up with the following expression over here, which says that your option 2 is your correct option. Now it's also a direct question from your worksheet. Now let us move to the next question. You have to find the current in 10 volt cell over here. So what you can do is you can just make the voltages over here. You can just point out the voltages over here. So for example 10 volt is given to me. What I have done is I have taken 10 volt over here, a 0 volt over here. Okay, this point is at 0 volt. Similarly this point should be also at 0 volt. Okay, and this point over here should also be at 10 volt. And because this point is in conjunction to this point over here, it's directly connected to this point over here, this point should also be having a 10 volt over here. Okay, so now you'll be asking that why we are having a 30 volt over here. Okay, because we are having a 0 volt over here, and according to this logic you should be having a 0 volt over here, but no, you should remember that there is a 10 ohm resistance in between these 2 points. Let us say this point is B and this point is A. Okay, you are having a resistance in between both of them. Okay, so if you are having a 10 volt over here, a 20 volt battery is in between them, okay, then you are left with the potential at A is to be your 30 volt. You can apply KVL, KCL, and you can figure out the following 30 volt over here. Okay, that's not my problem. You can check out my video on KVL and KCL trick. Okay, so either you can apply KVL and KCL trick to the whole circuit and figure out the value of the current in the 10 volt resistance, which will hardly take 5 minutes, or you can do this method also, in which you will be partitioning the voltages over here. You will be deciding the voltages of each node over here. Okay, now after finding this, what I am doing is I am applying V equal to IR. I am applying V equal to IR. So here, as you can see, if I have to find the value of I1, I can see that here is 30 volt, here is 0 volt. So change in voltage is nothing but 30. Equal to IR, the current flowing in this resistance, let us name it as I1, and the resistance in between them is 10 ohm over here. Okay, so I am having I1 equal to 3. Similarly, you can find out the value of I2 in the similar manner, and you'll be having, by the method of KCL, the Kirchhoff current law, that the current flowing in this 10 volt voltage over here, 10 volt battery over here, is the sum of both of the currents over here. So 3 plus 1 giving you a 4 ampere current. So my third option is the correct option. Now let us move to the next question, which says that in an electric circuit, ammeter and voltmeter are used to verify Ohm's law. Which of the following is true? Ammeter is connected in the series and voltmeter is connected in the parallel, so it is correct one. Other one should be incorrect. Okay, so it's a theory based question. You can figure out it by yourself. It's a basic knowledge you should be having before giving the examination itself. Okay, now steady state temperature are shown in the diagram. Steady state because they are not changing any further. So you have to find the ratio of the thermal conductivity K1 by K2 if the length of all the rods are same. So because these are all the rods, and by using the current analogy, I can say that all the rods are offering some kind of resistance to my flowing current over here. So my current in these rods are nothing but the rate of flow of heat for me. So rate of flow of heat for this rod will be equivalent to this rod, will be equivalent to this rod. This is the formula of rate of flow of heat. Okay, so now you are left with Ka dt by dx. Okay, dx is your length. All of them are having same length, so dx will be cut out. Okay, dx will be cancelled from all of them. Okay, area is same. Area will be cancelled out for all the three cases when you are entering every data into the following expression over here. K will be there because K are different for each of the rod over here. Delta T is nothing but T2 minus T1, the ending temperature and the final temperature and the initial temperature. Okay, so now here you can see that there is 100 Celsius given to you. At this junction over here it is 70 degree, at this junction over here it is 20 degree, and this junction over here it is 0 degree. Put all the data, you'll be getting the following expression over here. Okay, so now you can figure out the value of the ratio of K1 ratio K2 ratio K3 as follow. So now you can say that my option 2 is my correct option, because you have to find the ratio of K1 by K2. K1 by K2, which is nothing but 10 ratio 6. Okay, which is coming out to be 5 ratio 3. So my K1 by K2 is coming out to be 5 ratio 3. A particle of mass m is moving with the speed v. It collided elastically to another particle of mass 2m. Find the speed of the smaller mass after the head-on collision. So it's a basic question of the collision. What you can do is, first you have to conserve the collision. You have to use the conservation of momentum itself. Okay, you have to use the equation of conservation of momentum itself, which says if you are having a particle which is moving with the velocity v, mass m is colliding with a particle of mass 2m at rest. So that's your initial case. M into v, 2m into 0, because it is traveling with 0 velocity, it is at rest. So initial is nothing but m into v. At final you are having certain velocities for your both of the masses. Let us say v1 and v2. Okay, Next equation you can apply is equation of conservation of kinetic energy, because there is a elastic collision going on, so there isn't any wastage of energy. Okay, there will not be any wastage of energy, so you can apply simply this equation. You can figure out the value of velocity by yourself. Okay, you are having two unknowns, v1 v2, two equations. You can figure out the value of v1 v2 by yourself. Now let us move to the next direct question over here. You have to find the decay constant from this half-life. You are having a half-life and you have to find the decay constant. So as you know from the formula itself, half-life and the decay constant are related as follow. This is your half-life, this is your decay constant. Okay, put the values of the data from here. You are being given with the half-life itself. Put it over here and you will be getting the following answer, which is nothing but my option 1. Okay, now let us look at the following question over here. Charge density of a sphere is given as follow, which means charge per unit volume. Charge density is nothing but charge per unit volume is given to you as follow, rho, which is equal to rho naught by r. Now you have to figure out the charge of this whole sphere. So what you can do is, let us take a small chunk of the volume over here. Let us take a small chunk, which is nothing but my small shell over here. Okay, shell of a small thickness, let us say dr. Okay, so now I have taken a small charge. I've considered a very small volume, which is this shell over here, which is equivalent to this following function, rho naught upon r. Now this volume of the shell will be nothing but the area, surface area of the shell, which is 4 pi r square, and multiplied by the thickness, giving me the adequate volume of the shell. Okay, so I am left with dq equal to rho by r, rho naught by r, 4 pi r square dr. Now you have to integrate from 0, because you are starting from the center, ranging to the outer radius r itself. Okay, so you have to integrate it as follow, and you will be left with the following expression of charge over here. Okay, you're left with the following expression of charge over here. So it's a pretty much direct question again from your worksheet also. Okay, so here, now in the following question guys, you are being given with two planets of mass m and 16m respectively. Both of them are at a distance 10a from each other. You are having a mass m at a planet a. You are giving it a velocity v. Now this velocity will be as minimum as possible, so that this particle should reach this b planet over here. So to find the velocity, what I can do is, I can follow the following logic. Now first I must follow the null point. I must find the null point in between these two planets over here, because at the null point, the gravitational pull due to these two planets will be equivalent to 0. Okay, so if I send my particle to this null point over here, where both of them are having a 0 pull, okay, the force due to gravity will be equivalent to 0 at this point. Then if I move my particle at a very slight distance, delta x, the planet number b will readily attract this particle very easily. Okay, so my first job is to send my particle at this null point. So what I can do is, first to find the null point, you can equate the gravitational pull in between both of them at a certain point. Let us say this point is p over here, which is at a distance r from this planet, and 10a minus r from this planet over here. So when I balance the forces over here, now this is my mass of particle. Okay, so it will be cancelled out eventually. Okay, when I balance both of the gravitational pulls over here, or the force on my small particle m, I'll be left with the value of r equivalent to 2a. Okay, so my null point is lying at a distance 2a from my planet a. Now what I can do is, I'm here, I'm throwing my particle with a velocity v. So now at the null point, what I can do is, I can balance the energy at this initial point at my null point over here. So at the initial point, the gravitational potential energy due to my planet A and my particle, the gravitational potential energy due to my planet B and the particle. Okay, distance in between both of them is 9a. You can figure it out by yourself. Okay, so this is 9a if both of their center are at 10a. Then the energy, kinetic energy, adequate amount of kinetic energy I am giving to my particle. Okay, and at point B, which is my null point, my velocity will be equivalent to 0. I will be at halt at this point. Okay, because I am giving just enough kinetic energy to reach up to this point over here. Okay, so there is no kinetic energy present at this null point. There will be the potential energy due to my mass A, planet of mass A, and the gravitational potential energy due to my planet of mass B over here. After equating, I can say that the least velocity I can give to my particle is as follow. Okay, theoretically here you are having a zero velocity, so your particle is at halt at this point. So if in practical you give a small thrust to your particle, let us say delta v itself, then it will move a distance delta x toward your mass B, mass of planet M, okay, toward your planet B over here. And after moving this delta x distance, because it have now passed this null point over here, gravitational pull of this mass B over here, okay, it will be eventually, without exaggerating or without expanding any energy, will be attracted by this mass B over here. Okay, so that's theoretically you can do. So that's why I'm saying that you have to find the null point. Okay, now guys, if you loved my lecture, please give it a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe my channel. You have to share my lectures, okay, because it's benefiting for you guys and it's benefiting for all other guys. And please don't forget to watch my previous videos on JEE second and third step examination solution memory based questions, and also the tricks video and the tips video over KVL and KCL, and how to solve your numerical 2 times faster in your physics examination, and most repeated question in NEET itself. So we'll meet you in the next lecture. Until then, goodbye guys.